Hey YouTube, welcome again to my channel. Frugal Samurai here, hope you are well. If this is the first time you've come to my channel, then welcome, and I hope that you find my videos helpful and informative. Recently, a friend who's looking to buy a new home asked me what are the steps involved in buying a property. So I thought, hey, why not do a YouTube video? And here we are. Before we begin, a short disclaimer, all information here is general advice only. Please do your own research and of course seek professional advice. So today's video is going to be on what are the steps involved in buying a property in Australia. And here we go. Step one in the buying process is pre-work. This means that before we even look to buy a property, we must have the right mindset. This is because a property purchase is one of the biggest financial commitments most of us will ever make, and we need to make sure that we are committed for the long term and also understand the fact that being a property owner means that we are most likely stuck in the same place for an extended period of time. And we also need to understand both our income and our expenses, because the difference of that is our savings. As you'll see later on, our savings has a determinant in terms of how much we can buy. If you want to learn more about streamlining your savings, check out my earlier video, Personal Finance Habits We Can All Do Today, in the links below. So you might be wondering, how much do I actually need to save for a property? Well, this brings us to step number 2, which is to determine our budget. Everyone wants to buy our own home. Initially, however, and especially in places like Sydney, what we want is different to what we can afford. Therefore, the majority of us buy property with a partner. Now, I'm not talking your spouse or family or even friends. No, I'm talking more about a partner in the sense of a bank or a lender. How much you can borrow determines how much you can buy. This is why, as earlier on in the process as possible, please engage a mortgage broker or go to the bank or lender directly to determine how much you are eligible to borrow from them. Each lender has a different way to calculate how much you can borrow, but as a very general rule of thumb, if you are a single first home buyer with no major loans, we can take 7 times our pre-tax income to obtain our loan amount. For example, if I'm earning $70,000 per annum pre-tax, then I may be eligible up to a $490,000 loan. However, it's important that we approach the lender directly to ascertain the exact loan amount that we can borrow, because there are different factors that determine this, such as your monthly living expenses and also whether you have any other loans, such as credit cards, personal loans, or a car loan. Be warned though, just because your lender can lend you $490,000 doesn't mean that you can go out there, buy a property for $490,000 and assume that you can borrow the full amount. This is because typically a loan will only cover up to 80% of the loan amount. Sometimes it can go more, but usually you'll see that it is 80%, or what's commonly known as loan to value ratio. Coming back to our example, if we find a property for $490,000, a loan to value ratio of 80%, which means a 80% loan against that, equates to a loan of $392,000. The balance of that being $98,000, we need to fund that through our own pocket, or what's commonly known from our savings. Oh, and don't forget some other costs like stamp duty, which is typically 3 to 5% of the purchase price, varies from state to state, and other costs like legal fees and also property inspection reports like building and pest inspections. After you determine your budget, this brings us to number 3, which is to go shopping and find the property. If we drive around any suburb in Australia on a weekend, you will find the great Aussie pastime of home inspections. This is when we get the chance to look into someone else's property to determine whether we want to buy or rent it. Property listings are updated by the hour on major real estate portals such as realestate.com.au, domain.com.au and allhomes.com.au. When you look for a property, it's also important to determine whether that property is going to be your forever home or most likely a stepping stone. Don't worry guys, I will put up a video later on how to find the best property for yourself, but in the meantime, here are some things to consider. Location, location, location. You've probably heard this old adage before. The location of the property largely determines the valuation of the property itself. Location might encapsulate such things as proximity to shopping and transport, good school zones, or a unique view such as water views, or if it's sitting on top of a hill. We also need to determine whether the right type of property is suitable for us. For example, if we are a young family, is a 1-bedroom apartment going to be most suitable for our needs? Or if we are a single first home buyer, do we really need a 4-bedroom house? And another important tip, guys, when looking for a property is if you think you found the right one, it is always recommended to obtain a building and pest inspection report if you don't know what to look out for to determine whether the structural integrity of the property is sound. Personally, with every property purchase that I have made, I've always obtained a property building and pest inspection report from licensed builders and people that I trust, just to make sure that everything is all good and it won't fall down tomorrow. So you think you found the right one, but how do you make an offer? So this brings us to step 4, which is making the offer. There are actually many ways to buy property in Australia. In Sydney and Melbourne, a common way is via the auction process, in which the property has the opportunity to be sold then and there under unconditional terms. But what you'll find is actually with the other states, and a more common method of selling in general is via private sale or private treaty, in which the property price is listed online. For example, $500,000, and it's up to you to negotiate directly with the seller or via the seller's agent. What you'll find is that sometimes the price isn't the biggest determinant of whether the property gets sold. For example, if the seller is desperate for cash, they may be more inclined to accept a $450,000 cash unconditional offer then and there, over someone else who offers them $500,000 but in 3 months' time and subject to a loan approval. This is why finding out the reason the seller is selling is the number one piece of information that you can obtain during the negotiation process. Just don't expect the negotiation to be wrapped up quickly, because usually it takes days, sometimes weeks, sometimes months still before both parties are happy and sign on the dotted line. Oh, and that reminds me, make sure that you have your legal representative, such as your solicitor or conveyancer, review any legal documents before you sign. So this brings us to step 5, in which case they've accepted your offer. Now what? The first thing we should do after we've secured our property is to let our mortgage broker or our lender know ASAP. Unless, of course, we are lucky enough to have bought it with cash. Unfortunately, for the majority of us, we aren't that lucky to buy property with cash, in which case we need to apply for a loan. So depending on the lender that we choose, a loan approval sometimes can take days, but usually it takes weeks. This is why a property settlement process takes about 4 to 6 weeks. From the time when contracts are exchanged, in which case both buyer and seller agrees and signs on the dotted line, to when a property settlement actually occurs, in which case the legal ownership of the property is transferred to you. And whilst your loan is going through the application process, your solicitor or conveyancer should be working in the background to make sure that everything is fine and dandy with the property itself. This means checking off things like the relevant council works orders have been complete, if there have been any works done to the property, making sure there are no sewage or drainage issues with the property itself, updating the relevant government bodies with your new contact details, and much more. So now you've got your loan approved and it's almost time to settle. What should you expect? Well, this period is actually one of the most crucial periods, because it's the final part of the buying process. This is because on settlement, legal ownership of the property gets transferred to yourself, so you need to make sure that every box has been ticked, all the T's crossed and all the I's dotted. So here are some things to consider during this time. 1. Insurance. It's always prudent to obtain a level of insurance to ensure that our latest asset is covered, especially if it's in the 6 figures, sometimes even more. Number 2, making sure that any applicable government grants are on their way, such as the First Home Buyers Grant. Your solicitor or conveyancer should have got the ball rolling for you on this stage. If you haven't heard from them, please make sure you get in contact. Number 3, updating utilities companies like water, gas, and electricity with your new details. The same goes for other institutions such as your bank. Also, don't forget to redirect your mail from your old address to your new one. Number 4, there's also a very important day right before settlement, or what's commonly known as a pre-settlement inspection day. This day is important because it allows you the time to go in, inspect the property right before settlement to make sure that everything is as it should be, as per when you initially inspected the property or from when the building and pest inspection report was done. If you find anything that's wrong on this day, make sure you contact your legal representative as soon as possible for them to sort out any issues. And of course, this brings us to number 5, which is to don't forget to pack and get ready for the big day. And this brings us to our last step, which is settlement. So on settlement day, congratulations, well done, the property is now legally yours and now you are a proud homeowner. Yay! Again, on settlement day, if you have found something that doesn't seem quite right, make sure you go back to your solicitor as soon as possible to rectify any mistakes. Now, a word of caution, after settlement, the property is now yours, and it may be difficult for your solicitor to rectify anything with the previous owner. But of course, it's always good to seek legal advice. There you have it guys, a fairly comprehensive step-by-step guide as to what's involved in buying a property here in Australia. Which step are you? Let me know in the comments below. And if you like this video, please do me a favor, hit that subscribe button, click on the bell, turn the notifications on, and I will see you next time. Bye guys. Well done. If you find anything, number three, updating.